My half-sister wanted to reconnect after years apart, but I could tell she was after something and hid it, and it started on an ordinary Tuesday night. I was halfway through assembling a DIY bookshelf, the kind that makes you question your life choices, when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and froze. Avery. The name alone sent a ripple through me. My half-sister hadn't contacted me in years. Truthfully, I couldn't remember the last time I heard from her. Maybe it was during my mom's birthday 7 years ago? Even then, it was just a polite hello before she drifted into her own corner of the party. Curiosity got the better of me, so I unlocked my phone. Avery. Hey, Caleb. I know it's been a long time. I've been thinking about you and wanted to reconnect. Maybe grab coffee sometime? I stared at the message for a moment, half expecting a second one explaining why she'd suddenly reached out. But nothing came. Who's texting you? Olivia's voice cut through my thoughts. My fiancée was leaning against the kitchen counter, sipping tea, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun. Avery, I said, the name tasting strange in my mouth. Her eyebrows shot up. Your sister Avery? The one who ghosted the entire family? Half-sister, I corrected instinctively, though I didn't know why. Yeah, that Avery. And now she wants coffee? Olivia's skepticism was palpable. She knew bits and pieces about my strained history with Avery, enough to understand why her sudden interest felt off. Apparently, I tossed my phone onto the couch and picked up the instruction manual for the bookshelf, pretending it didn't bother me. But it did. To understand why Avery's message unnerved me, you need some context. We share the same mom, Joanna, but different dads. Growing up, Avery and I were close. Closer than you'd expect given the circumstances. I was the protective older brother, always trying to shield her from the chaos of our blended family. Our mom's second marriage to Richard, Avery's dad, was anything but smooth. He wasn't abusive, but he was distant, controlling in ways that stifled both Mom and Avery. When Mom finally filed for divorce, the fallout was messy. Richard got full custody of Avery, and I barely saw her after that. Over time, our relationship fizzled out. The few times we did talk, it felt like she'd become a different person, guarded and cold. The last straw was our grandmother's funeral. Avery showed up late, avoided me the entire time, and left before the will was even read. She didn't need to stick around, though. Grandma's estate had been divided equally between Mom, Ellie, my younger sister from Mom's third marriage, and me. Avery got nothing. Not because Grandma didn't love her, but because she'd already received a hefty trust fund when she turned 18. So why now? Why coffee? Against my better judgment, I replied. Me? Hey, Avery. It's been a while. Coffee sounds good. When and where? Within minutes, she responded with a cafe downtown and a time. Friday at noon. It was unusually efficient, almost as if she'd been waiting for me to say yes. Are you actually going to meet her? Olivia asked later that night as we got into bed. I don't see why not, I said, though part of me wasn't so sure. Maybe she really does just want to catch up. Or maybe she wants something, she countered, pulling the blanket over her shoulders. Just be careful, okay? Friday came fast. The cafe Avery picked was trendy and overpriced, the kind of place that served avocado toast with edible flowers. I spotted her immediately. She looked different. Older, of course, but it was more than that. Her once carefree smile was replaced by something more reserved, almost calculated. She waved me over, and I sat across from her, trying to push away the awkwardness. Caleb, she said brightly. Wow, it's so good to see you. You too, I said, though the words felt hollow. We made small talk for a while, how she was working as a freelance graphic designer, how I was preparing for my wedding. But then, almost imperceptibly, the conversation shifted. So, how's Mom doing? She asked, stirring her cappuccino. She's good. Busy with Ellie's college stuff. That's great, she said, but her eyes lingered on mine. And the family? Everything stable? It was an odd question, but I shrugged it off. Yeah, I guess. Her questions became more pointed as the hour went on. She asked about Grandma's house, Mom's health, and even the inheritance, though she tried to couch it in casual curiosity. So, do you still have the lake cabin? She asked, referring to the property Grandma had left me. Yeah, I do, I said slowly. Why? Oh, no reason, she said quickly, waving it off. I just remember spending summers there. Good times, you know? It felt rehearsed, like she'd been practicing how to bring it up without sounding too obvious. By the time I left the cafe, my gut was screaming at me. Something wasn't right. Olivia's words echoed in my head. Maybe she wants something? Still, I couldn't shake the part of me that wanted to believe Avery's intentions were pure. Maybe she really did just want to reconnect. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But then, as I was driving home, my phone buzzed again. It was another message from Avery. Avery, thanks for meeting with me. It was so great to catch up. I've been thinking, maybe we could spend more time together? I really miss the family. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Me? Sure. Let's see where this goes. I didn't know if I meant it, but I did know one thing for certain. Avery wasn't telling me the whole truth. The next time Avery and I met, it was over dinner at a diner I'd suggested. I figured something more casual might help lower the tension, and honestly, it was cheaper than the cafe she'd chosen last time. Avery showed up 10 minutes late, looking put together but not overly polished. Her jeans were ripped in that trendy way, and she wore a leather jacket that screamed, "I'm trying to look effortless, but this took an hour." "Sorry I'm late," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "It's fine." I motioned to the menu. "You hungry?" We ordered, and at first, the conversation was light. She laughed at my terrible attempts at cooking, teased me about how Olivia and I had argued over wedding colors, and shared some funny stories about her work. But once the food arrived, the tone shifted. "Do you ever think about the old days?" she asked, pushing her fries around her plate. "Sometimes," I admitted. "Why?" She shrugged. "I don't know. I guess I just miss how simple things used to be. You and me against the world, remember?" I did. Before everything fell apart, Avery and I were inseparable. But bringing it up felt like opening a wound that had long since scabbed over. "Yeah," I said, keeping it short. "You know, I always wondered what would have happened if Mom hadn't divorced Dad," she continued. Her words hit like a curveball. "Richard," I corrected her instinctively. "He's not my dad." Avery rolled her eyes. "You know what I mean." The truth was, I didn't know. Richard was controlling, sure, but he'd always favored Avery. I couldn't help wondering if she missed him or just missed the perks of being his daughter. Then she started steering the conversation again. "So, Mom's doing well? And Ellie's applying to colleges, right?" "Yeah," I said cautiously. "She's got a few options lined up." "Why?" "Oh, just curious. I'd love to catch up with them too." She paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. "Do they ever talk about me?" That question hit harder than I expected. The truth was, they didn't. Not really. Avery had become more of a ghost than a memory in our family. "They ask about you sometimes," I lied. Her face softened. "That's nice to hear. I was worried they might have, forgotten about me." I didn't respond. I just focused on my burger, hoping she'd drop it. Later that night, I told Olivia about the dinner. "She's fishing," Olivia said, sitting cross-legged on the couch. "For what?" "Validation. Attention. Money. Who knows?" She shrugged but didn't look surprised. "She didn't ask for anything outright," I argued, though I wasn't sure if I believed it myself. "She's not stupid, Caleb. People don't just show up out of nowhere without a reason. Trust me, she's after something." Olivia wasn't the only one with doubts. My best friend, Noah, chimed in when I brought it up over beers the next evening. "Dude, she's playing you," he said bluntly. "Why now? Why not 5 years ago? 10 years ago?" I didn't have an answer. Still, part of me wanted to give Avery the benefit of the doubt. She was family, after all, and as much as I hated to admit it, I missed her. The next time we hung out, it was her suggestion. A park near her apartment. It felt normal, almost comforting, to walk and talk like we used to as kids. But then, almost casually, she brought it up. "Do you ever use the lake cabin anymore?" she asked, glancing at me. "Not much," I said carefully. "Why?" "Oh, no reason," she said, her tone light. "I was just thinking about how much fun we had there. It must be expensive to keep up, though, right? Taxes and all that." Red flag. I could feel it waving, but I tried to brush it off. It's manageable, I said, keeping my answers vague. She didn't press further, but the seed was planted. Over the next few weeks, Avery and I spent more time together. She made an effort to visit Mom and Ellie, which seemed genuine at first. But even they noticed the cracks in her facade. She kept asking me about Grandma's will. Ellie said one afternoon, "What did you tell her?" I asked. "Nothing. But it was weird, you know? Like, why would she care about that now?" The unease in my stomach grew. I started replaying all our conversations in my head, noticing how she kept circling back to money, property, and the family dynamics. One day, my neighbor Harper caught me as I was leaving for work. "Hey, Caleb," she said, her tone hesitant. "Is someone staying at your place during the day?" "What?" "No." "Why?" "I've seen a woman hanging around your backyard a couple of times. Blonde, mid-20s. She looks a lot like Avery." I finished, my voice tight. Harper nodded. I didn't want to assume, but it seemed strange. I thanked her and drove to work, my thoughts racing. What was Avery doing at my house? That evening, I confronted her. "You've been by my place, haven't you?" I asked over the phone. There was a pause. "What?" "No. Why would I do that?" "My neighbor saw you." "Oh, Harper, right?" she said quickly. "Yeah, I walked by once. I was in the neighborhood and thought about stopping in, but you weren't home." Her explanation felt too convenient, too rehearsed. "What were you looking for?" I pressed. "Nothing. God, Caleb, I'm not snooping around your life." But she was, and we both knew it. I decided to dig deeper. I called Marcus, the family lawyer who'd handled Grandma's estate. "Marcus, can you check something for me?" I asked. "What's going on?" he replied, his tone wary. "I think Avery's trying to find a loophole in Grandma's will or something. Can you make sure everything's secure?" "I'll take a look," he said. A few days later, Marcus called back. "You were right to be cautious," he said. "Avery's been asking about the estate. She called my office last week pretending to be you." My blood ran cold. By now, the pieces were falling into place. Avery's sudden reappearance, her questions, her lurking around my house, it all pointed to one thing. She was after the money. But why? What had driven her to this? I wasn't sure I wanted to find out. After Marcus's call, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being pulled into something far messier than I'd anticipated. Avery's charm, her sudden reappearance, even the way she seemed to blend genuine warmth with calculated inquiries, it all felt like pieces of a puzzle I wasn't sure I wanted to solve. That weekend, I decided to confront her. It wasn't going to be a dramatic, screaming match kind of thing. I just needed answers, clear ones. But Avery beat me to the punch. She showed up at my house unannounced on Saturday afternoon, clutching a bakery box. "I brought cookies," she said with a grin that felt too bright to be real. "Olivia around?" "She's out running errands," I said, stepping aside to let her in. Avery looked around the house with a little too much interest. "Wow, you've done well for yourself, Caleb. This place is gorgeous." "Thanks," I said, keeping my tone neutral. We sat at the dining table, the cookies untouched between us. I decided to cut to the chase. "Why were you asking Marcus about Grandma's will?" The smile on Avery's face faltered. She recovered quickly, but not quickly enough. "What?" "I didn't." "Don't lie to me," I interrupted. "He told me you called his office pretending to be me." Avery's cheeks flushed, but instead of looking guilty, she looked annoyed. "Fine," she said, leaning back in her chair. "I wanted to know if there was anything left. Happy now?" "No, I'm not happy," I snapped. "You've been sneaking around, lying, and I'm supposed to just brush it off because you brought cookies?" Avery's expression hardened. "You don't understand, Caleb. Things haven't been easy for me." "Then tell me what's going on." She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the table. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer, almost vulnerable. "Chloe," she said. "Who's Chloe?" "A friend. Or at least, I thought she was." Avery sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I owe her money. A lot of money." The story she told me was as messy as I'd expected. After losing her steady job, Avery had fallen in with Chloe, a supposed friend who'd helped her get back on her feet. or so she thought. Chloe had loaned Avery money for rent, bills, and other expenses, but now she was demanding repayment with interest. "It's not just the money," Avery said, her voice trembling slightly. "Chloe's connected. She has people. She's been threatening me, Caleb." Part of me wanted to believe her. I really did. But something about the way she told the story felt off. "How much do you owe?" I asked. 30,000. 30,000? I echoed, my voice rising. "How did you even?" "It doesn't matter," she interrupted. "What matters is that I'm running out of time. Chloe knows about the inheritance, Caleb. She's been pressuring me to find a way to access it, and you thought you'd just, what? Trick me into helping you?" Avery flinched, but she didn't deny it. After she left, I felt more conflicted than ever. If she was telling the truth, she was in serious trouble. But if she wasn't, well, then she was playing me, and I couldn't let that slide. I decided to dig deeper. Harper's observation about Avery lurking around my property still nagged at me, so I checked the security cameras I'd installed last year after a break-in scare. Sure enough, there she was, Avery, sneaking around the backyard a week earlier. But she wasn't alone. Another woman, tall and blonde, was with her. "Chloe," I muttered under my breath. The footage showed them trying to look through the windows, talking in hushed voices. At one point, Chloe gestured toward the lake cabin key hanging in the mudroom, visible through the glass. They didn't break in, but the intent was clear. I called Marcus again the next morning. "I need you to dig up whatever you can on this Chloe person," I said. "She's working with Avery, and I think they're trying to get to the cabin." "I'll see what I can find," Marcus replied. "In the meantime, be careful. If they're willing to go this far, they might not stop at snooping." The warning made my stomach churn. A few days later, Marcus called back with an update. "You were right," he said. "Chloe's trouble. She's been sued multiple times for fraud and extortion. It looks like she targets people in vulnerable situations, then milks them for everything they're worth." "What about Avery?" I asked. "Do you think she's a victim, or is she in on it?" "That's harder to say," Marcus admitted. "It's possible Chloe's manipulating her, but given Avery's financial situation, she might be more complicit than you think." I didn't know what to do with that information. Avery had always been good at playing the victim when it suited her, but this felt bigger than her usual antics. The final straw came when Olivia found a note tucked under our front door. It was scrawled in messy handwriting and read, "Caleb, you have something that doesn't belong to you. Be smart, or I'll make you regret it, asterisk asterisk." Olivia's face went pale as she handed it to me. "What the hell is this?" she asked. "It's Chloe," I said grimly. "She's escalating. We need to call the police," Olivia insisted. "And tell them what?" "That my half-sister and her shady friend are mad about an inheritance." I shook my head. "We don't have enough to go on." "But she threatened you," Olivia said, her voice rising. "That's not nothing, Caleb." "I'll handle it," I promised, though I had no idea how. That night, I called Avery. "I know about Chloe," I said as soon as she picked up. There was a long pause. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb. I saw the footage. I know you were at my house with her." "Caleb, I can explain." "No, you can't," I interrupted. "You've been lying to me since the moment you showed up. And now you've dragged some con artist into this? What the hell is wrong with you?" Her voice cracked. "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice, Avery," I shot back. "You chose to betray me." Again. "I'm sorry," she whispered. For the first time, she sounded genuinely remorseful. But I couldn't trust her, not anymore. I didn't sleep much after that call. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured Avery and Chloe standing in my backyard, their heads bent together like co-conspirators. It felt like my life was becoming a bad crime drama, and I wasn't sure who the real villain was anymore. By the next morning, I was done waiting for answers. If Avery wouldn't tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. The first thing I did was visit Harper, my neighbor. She answered the door wearing sweatpants and a look of mild confusion. "Hey, Caleb. What's up?" "Harper, I need to know exactly what you saw when Avery and that woman were at my house," I said, cutting straight to the point. Her eyes widened. "I already told you. They were in the backyard, looking around." "Why? Did something happen?" "Yeah, something happened. I muttered, running a hand through my hair. Do you remember anything specific? Did they take anything? Say anything? Harper frowned, thinking. They didn't take anything while I was watching, but the blonde one, Chloe, I guess, was definitely in charge. She kept pointing at stuff, like she was giving instructions. Avery looked, I don't know, nervous? Like she didn't want to be there. That didn't make me feel any better. Thanks, Harper, I said. Let me know if you see anything else, okay? She nodded, her concern evident. Be careful, Caleb. Those two don't seem like the type to play fair. Next, I decided to dig into Chloe's background myself. Marcus had already given me the basics, but I wanted more. It didn't take long to find her social media profiles, carefully curated pages full of glamorous selfies and motivational quotes about hustling. But the deeper I went, the uglier it got. There were dozens of posts from people accusing her of scams, fake business deals, shady loan agreements, even allegations of blackmail. She'd clearly left a trail of destruction behind her, and now she'd latched onto Avery. I couldn't decide whether Avery was Chloe's victim or her accomplice. Maybe she was both. Later that evening, Marcus called with another update. I found something you'll want to see, he said. What is it? It's an old police report. Chloe was investigated a few years ago for extortion. One of her victims claimed she used personal information to threaten them into handing over money. The case was dropped due to lack of evidence. But get this, Avery's name is mentioned in the report. My stomach dropped. As a suspect? No, as a witness. She gave a statement saying she barely knew Chloe, but the victim claimed they were working together. The pieces were starting to fall into place, and the picture wasn't pretty. I confronted Avery the next day. You lied to me again, I said as soon as she opened the door. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. What are you talking about now? Chloe, the extortion case. You told the cops you barely knew her, but the victim said you were involved. Her face went pale. That was years ago, Caleb. I didn't do anything wrong. Then why didn't you tell me? I demanded. Why keep hiding things if you've got nothing to be ashamed of? Because I knew you wouldn't believe me, she shouted, tears welling in her eyes. You've always looked at me like I'm some kind of screw-up. No matter what I do, I can't win with you. Her words hit harder than I wanted to admit. Then tell me the truth, I said, my voice softer. Just once. Tell me what's really going on. Avery sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Chloe's been blackmailing me, she said. She found out about the trust fund and started threatening to go after me for more money. I didn't know what to do, so I told her about the inheritance. I thought maybe if she thought there was more, she'd leave me alone. And instead, she dragged you deeper into her mess, I said, anger simmering beneath the surface. Avery nodded, tears streaming down her face. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, Caleb. I just wanted to make it stop. Her confession left me with more questions than answers. Was she telling the truth, or was this just another story designed to manipulate me? Either way, I knew one thing for sure. Chloe was the bigger threat. I decided to confront her directly. It took some digging, but I finally tracked Chloe down to a trendy bar downtown. She was easy to spot, holding court at a table surrounded by people who looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. Chloe, I said, walking up to her. She looked up, her eyes narrowing. And you are? Caleb, I said, taking a seat without waiting for an invitation. Avery's brother. Her lips curled into a smirk. Ah, the protective sibling. How cute. I know what you're doing, I said bluntly, and it's over. Stay away from my family, or you'll regret it. Chloe laughed, a sharp, cold sound. You've got guts, I'll give you that. But you're out of your league, sweetheart. This isn't your fight. It is now, I said. I've got enough evidence to ruin you, Chloe. Police reports, witness statements, everything. If you don't back off, I'll make sure you're in a cell by the end of the week. For a moment, she looked rattled, but then her smirk returned. Nice bluff, she said, but let's not pretend you're ready to go to war over Avery. She's not worth it, and we both know it. Her words hit a nerve, but I didn't let it show. Try me, I said, standing up. This is your only warning. As I walked away, I felt her eyes burning into my back. When I got home, I found Avery waiting on the porch. She looked like she'd been crying again. Chloe called me, she said as I walked up. What did you do? I told her to back off, I said. You're safe now. Avery shook her head. You don't get it, Caleb. She's not going to stop. You've just made things worse. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Unknown. Nice try, Caleb, but you're playing a dangerous game. Better watch your back. The text sent a chill down my spine. Chloe wasn't bluffing, and now I'd put a target on both of us. The text lingered in my mind like a storm cloud, heavy and oppressive. Chloe's message wasn't just a threat. It was a declaration of war. I stared at the screen, torn between fear and anger, until Avery's voice broke the silence. What does it say? She asked, her face pale. I handed her the phone. Her eyes scanned the text, and I watched her expression crumble. I told you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She's dangerous, Caleb. I don't care. I snapped. She's not going to keep terrorizing you. Or me. But what if? No, I cut her off, my tone firm. We're not running scared. Not this time. Avery didn't argue, but I could see the fear etched into her features. The next day, I called Marcus. We need to act, I said as soon as he answered. What do you have in mind? I want to lock everything down, I said. The cabin, the house, every piece of family property Chloe might go after. If she can't access anything, she has no leverage. Marcus hesitated. That's a smart move, but it won't solve the bigger problem. If Chloe's as dangerous as you say, she might escalate. I'll deal with that, I said, though I had no idea how. Just make sure everything's secure. Consider it done, Marcus replied. By the time Marcus finished the paperwork, I had a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best I could come up with under the circumstances. I called Noah for backup, knowing he'd have my back no matter how crazy the idea sounded. She threatened you, he said, his voice rising with anger. Yeah, I admitted. But I'm not just going to sit here and wait for her to make her next move. What do you need me to do? I explained the plan, and to my relief, Noah didn't hesitate. Let's do it, he said. The following evening, Noah and I waited in my car outside the bar where I'd confronted Chloe. I'd sent her a message earlier that day, pretending to be Avery and offering to negotiate. The bait worked. Chloe showed up right on time, looking as smug as ever. She's here, Noah muttered from the driver's seat. I nodded. Stay here. I'll handle this. Be careful, man, he said, gripping the steering wheel tightly. I stepped out of the car and approached Chloe, who was leaning against the bar's exterior wall, scrolling through her phone. Where's Avery? She asked, not bothering to look up. She's not coming, I said, crossing my arms. Chloe finally looked up, her smirk fading. You again. Didn't you get the message? I got it loud and clear, I said. But here's the thing. I'm not scared of you. Chloe laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. You should be. Do you have any idea who you're messing with? I know exactly who you are, I said, stepping closer. A fraud. A bully. And now, someone who's running out of options. Her expression darkened. Careful, Caleb. You don't want to make me angry. Too late, I said. I've already locked down every piece of family property. You can't touch the cabin, the house, or anything else. You have no leverage. It's over. Chloe's jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought she might lash out. But then she smiled, a slow, predatory grin that sent a chill down my spine. You think you've won? She said. Cute. She turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. When I got back to the car, Noah was watching me with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Well, he asked. She's not done, I said grimly. But she knows we're onto her. What's the next move? I don't know, I admitted. But I'm not letting her win. The next few days were tense. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected another threat. Every time I walked outside, I scanned the street for signs of Chloe or her associates. Avery stayed with Olivia and me, too scared to be alone. She barely spoke, her guilt weighing heavily on her. One night, as we sat in the living room, she finally broke the silence. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "For what?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "For everything," she said, tears streaming down her face. "For dragging you into this. For being so stupid. I thought I could handle it, but I just made everything worse." I wanted to stay angry at her, but seeing her like that made it impossible. "We'll figure it out," I said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "But you need to tell me everything. No more secrets." Avery nodded, wiping her eyes. The turning point came a week later when Marcus called with surprising news. "I have a contact in law enforcement," he said. I told him about Chloe, and he ran her name through their system. Turns out, she's already under investigation for another scam. "What does that mean for us?" I asked. "It means we might have a chance to take her down," Marcus said. "If you're willing to cooperate." I didn't hesitate. "Tell me what to do." The plan was simple. Set up a sting operation to catch Chloe in the act. Avery would agree to meet with her and offer fake access to the lake cabin in exchange for Chloe leaving her alone. Meanwhile, law enforcement would record everything. It was risky, but it was the only way to end the nightmare. The meeting took place at a secluded park. Avery was visibly nervous as she waited on the bench, a hidden microphone tucked into her jacket. "She'll show," I said from the surveillance van, trying to reassure her through the earpiece. A few minutes later, Chloe appeared. "You finally grew a spine," she said, sitting beside Avery. "I just want this to be over," Avery said, her voice trembling. "Good," Chloe said. "Then let's talk terms." As the conversation unfolded, Chloe made it clear that she had no intention of letting Avery go. She demanded full access to the cabin, claiming she'd sell it to cover the debt. That was all the police needed. They moved in quickly, arresting Chloe before she could react. Watching Chloe be led away in handcuffs was a strange mix of relief and disbelief. It was finally over. Avery broke down in tears, apologizing over and over. "It's okay," I said, pulling her into a hug. "We'll get through this." And for the first time in years, I actually believed it.